This video is part of a sequence of steps showing you how to build a lineup in DraftKings for Showdown slates. This particular episode shows you how to find projections for each of the players in your starting lineups. Instead of just using the DraftKings average, which is not a very accurate way to go about optimizing your final score, we want to get some sharper numbers, and the best way to do that is to get numbers from a few different places and average them together. One good source for numbers is Sportsline. CBS Sportsline projects these numbers for every game. One of the tabs in the optimizer has a sheet that shows data for how we can enter for Sportsline, and a couple other tabs will show different sources for different fantasy points. We're going to go to the Sportsline website and find the game that we're looking for, Green Bay at Minnesota. If you have a subscription, you can download these into Excel. If you don't, you can use table capture in Google Sheets to try to capture this data. If you don't have table capture, you can do it another way. But here we'll show you the extension called table capture for Google Sheets, which allows you to get, not Google Sheets, Google Chrome, which shows you how to capture these pieces of data from a website. You can do a Google search on extensions and find table capture as one of the extensions you can download for your computer, and make sure you activate it. I'll show you the more simpler step of just copying and pasting if you don't want to go through the process of table capture. We simply go back to Sportsline and we'll copy and paste right into our tab on the optimizer sheet. Just highlight all the data in the Sportsline website and copy it into the sheet. Make sure you get all of the player data from left to right, including their names, so it's copied appropriately. Once we have this data copied, we can paste it in, and we use a special paste special feature so we don't have the formatting from the website. You just go to Edit, Paste Special, and use text. It'll give you nice clean data from the website. So this is our Sportsline projections. These are our Sportsline projections for this particular contest. At the top row, if we select 1 instead of 0, it accumulates that data. If any of the players are blank, it may indicate that they're not being projected by Sportsline, and this is why it's good to use multiple sources of data for player projections. If one site is missing a player, we can maybe get it from another. So the other site we're going to get data from is called Fantasy Fuel. We also have a tab in our optimizer for Fantasy Fuel. So we'll clear out all of the previous data from another contest before we paste in anything new. I keep a live link on the tab so it's easy to find the website for each of the tabs I'm getting projection numbers from. Fantasy Fuel has a nice feature in that it allows you to download directly. You don't need to copy and paste or table capture. So we'll get that data, copy it from the download, and paste it right into the appropriate tab on our optimizer. There's one final step that we use for Fantasy Fuel because it's formatted a little bit differently than we need it for the optimizer to recognize the player names. This column to the right does a feature called concatenation, which takes two different columns of data and puts them together. Here we can see Patrick in one column and Mahomes in the other. Using the function of concatenation puts the full name together so that we can source it when we want to use it for the optimizer. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll look for names that are incomplete or missing data and correct them. If a name's spelled differently in that particular website, we need to change it and make it fit for the optimizer to recognize it. A couple players for Sportsline are not listed. Sportsline may not put in 3 wide receivers or may only put in 1 running back. So again, that's a good reason to use different multiple sources for projected points for your optimizer to recognize. Sometimes if a player is a rookie or has just recently been traded, they may not show up in a particular game, and we want to make sure that they come in correctly. We have to fix the names of the DSTs also on these sheets to make them become recognizable for the optimizer to see them. So we're going to have a couple missing pieces of data for a few players for Sportsline, but hopefully they'll show up in the other column for our other source of information from Fantasy Fuel. So we've got Fantasy Fuel also live by changing its 0 to a 1. That means that data will be pulled in. Fantasy Fuel does not show kickers or DST, so those are the only 2 blanks on each team's player data. We ultimately take an average of all the columns, all the points we get from outside sources to come up with a consensus number for player points for that particular game.